Welcome, guys. Welcome. TribeCast. What is it, July? All right.
July
Let's see as
29.
people start joining in. As you're joining in, type in the chat, where are you streaming in from? What city, what cash flow club do you attend? Give a shout out here. We'll put that up on the screen. Super excited. We got Carlos, my co-host for the Tribe cast here, and we have special guest Davis. Davis is one of our Cash Flow Breakfast Club leaders, and actually I had him co-host and guest present at my club just last week. He's a short-term rental expert, so we'll get into that today. A lot of fun stuff covering short-term rentals, prizes to give away, some announcements, really good stuff. But thank you guys for tuning in. Carlos, what's going on? Anything new in your world?
Yeah, excited to be here. I'm excited to have Davis here. We had a great comments and review from our latest podcast. We have our special guest as well, and she was an amazing story. So it's pretty cool. So I'm looking forward to learn more about Davis and the short-term rental. And excited about this time of the year. You know, summer is great, especially because all my girls' birthdays are in summer. I have my wife is for July 14, my daughter July 23rd, and my other daughter is August 4th. So a lot of cake. It's not good for my fitness life, but excited about tonight's
Happy
conversation.
birthday, Amaya family.
Yeah, it's a lot of cake all around.
Love it. All right, guys, put in the chat, where are you chiming in from? We got Shepherdstown, West Virginia. Welcome, John. Are we able to put comments? Yep, there we go. Perfect. So we got a couple quick announcements, and we'll mention this now, and we'll do that towards the end as well. Once again, we're going to be at BBCon again this year. Many of you have attended a BBCon in the past. The best BBCon that I've ever attended by far was in Orlando, I think 4 years ago, maybe 3. And we're going back to Orlando. So we're going to be there. Super excited. We have a lot of people from various Cash Flow Breakfast clubs joining us in Orlando. I believe it's the first week of October. If you just Google BPCon 2026, you'll find the link. Maybe we'll get that link here as well. If you get your tickets prior to the end of July, early bird pricing, it's $100 off. Plus, if you use the code CFBC, you get an extra $50 off. And we're going to do a drawing at the end. We're going to give away some extra prizes towards BPCon attendees as well. So we'd love for you guys to join us, hang out in person, spend a few weeks with your Cash Flow Breakfast Club family. So we got some prizes we're going to give away for those who have been updating their leaderboard. This is for June. A lot of you updated your leaderboard in June. You have a few more days to update your leaderboard for July, and we're going to pull prizes next month for that as well. Welcome, Larry from Charlotte. Sadu, how's it going, brother?
I'm loving Charlotte's being represented. I love that.
Charlotte is represented. Look at that trait.
We have Larry.
Jackin, welcome. Lucas Arlington, welcome. Sadu, Larry, love it. Okay, awesome, guys. Well, let's jump right in. Carlos, you want to put up your slides? Let's talk about and our normal format. As you guys have questions, put it in the chat. Raise your hand if you want to come on camera. We'll even bring you on camera. Put it in the chat, and we're going to just talk about a few things that we think are relevant and hopefully a slightly different perspective than what you normally get within the Cash Flow Breakfast Club in-person meetings. But let's go for it, Carlos.
Definitely. So one of the more excited real estate investments strategies are short-term rentals. So we have a couple of numbers here, and I'm excited about here David's perspective, especially because he's in the trenches. So something that I was thinking about this morning is like, you guys are two operators of short-term rentals, and I'm a client. I've been using it for a long time. So I was like, I'm gonna give my feedback perspective in terms of the numbers, and then obviously you guys can give us a feedback in terms of real estate strategy. So a couple of things that we saw over here. The market right now, the leases overall like 1.77 through the United States, which is we saw it increase when and I'm sure you guys want to talk about that. And when COVID happened, like 20%, everybody like short-term rental is the best, and then it come down a little bit last year, but it's going up again this year. And basically the revenue It's going up for 2.9%, and it's something that I saw before we started working and we started getting into the show today. Was that discussion is that if real estate is a short term, it's a real estate investment, or it is a becoming hospitality business. And the point, and I'll give you guys the pass, is that at the end of the day is the market will bring the clients, but the management will bring the revenue. So I would like to see how do you guys see that, and any lessons, and obviously we had a conversation this morning. Some operators of short-term rentals, they're not doing really well is because of the lack of system and preparation. So I would like to dig into that, especially with Davis in the call. And I know now you have a lot of short-term rentals as well.
Yeah, I love this slide. So I kind of put up a couple different markets. We got DMV, Virginia. I know you pull some Charlotte information as well in some of these, and it's interesting. When I got into short-term rentals, I was a passive owner partner for many years. Management was just so tough, and so I didn't want anything to do with management. And so we always made sure we outsourced it, or my partners were managing it for me. Over the last few years, technology has gotten better. And so some of the properties that we're purchasing, we are self-managing. When I say self-managing, I'm hiring a team in-house to manage it for me. But we still do have some properties in some regions where we're finding it's actually better to outsource to a local manager there, and we're getting better results with that, right? So some markets are different than others. And, until you jump in, it's hard to really figure out what's going on there. Davis, you are not just a short-term rental operator, but a furnished rental, midterm as well operator. And then you created a management business. And so you've been seeing this from both sides. What's your perspective here in terms of the market, kind of the shift of the market boom initially? And then obviously we saw a pullback in some of the markets. And, how are you operating and investing right now? And where are you seeing the wins in short-term rentals?
Yeah, well, first, thanks for inviting me on. This is, I'm looking forward to this. Yeah, I mean, just like any other rental strategy, hyper localized, right? So I'm very much focused in the Virginia market, and that means anywhere from the Shenandoah Valley all the way down to the Hampton Roads market, which is like Virginia Beach and that general area. So it really is dependent on the local market. So and what's driving the business. So as you said, anything furnished. So midterm, rent by the room, STR. As long as there's furniture in it, we manage it. But in the Hampton Roads market, lots of military. So there's lots of hospitals there as well. And so the NTR space actually performs quite well. But it's also like a beach town, if you talk about Norfolk and Virginia Beach. So it does perform quite well, just depending on the specific area, even within that local market. And we already know like Shenandoah Valley performs quite well as short-term rentals as well. And then the general DMV market as well. So yeah, I don't know much outside across nationally, like what the average daily rates are looking like on a national basis, but this local Virginia market is performing quite well.
So Virginia Beach specifically, or maybe any of your markets, how are you deciding short-term's better option or mid-term's a better option, or are you doing a hybrid approach and mixing any of those at all yet?
I'm glad you raised that. So it really depends, right? Like what I always preach is make sure that multiple strategies work, even with the same property. You already got furniture in there. So mix it up. Like you may lead with a short-term rental, but then in the off season, let's say you're in a beach town, and during the winter, people aren't really going to the beach. Make sure that you can operate as a midterm rental during that, shoulder season or off season. And then whenever the summer comes back around again, you can refocus on short-term rental. So that switch, I mean, it's really as easy as updating your minimum stay requirement. And that's basically it. And then if it's like rent by the room, maybe it's a little bit more unique with like, if you want to put like TVs and stuff in each individual room. So a little bit of variance, but as long as you got furniture in there, you have a lot of flexibility.
Yeah.
How do you, Davis, how did you stand out? Like I noticed, like again, I'm a user. I've been staying in Airbnb for a long time with my family, and I noticed lately the people have become more professional in terms of like games and attractions in the Instagram of all the walls, and I noticed that that became a trend. At least, I mean, And we make a lot of the decisions as a consumer. Okay, so this one looks great. This one has a basketball court, whatever it is, like an additional versus like any other. Because at the end of the day, short-term rental initially you have that many listings, and then right now it seems like everybody got into it. So many listings within the same market. So how do you stand out to try to capture the audience? And it's okay, I'm gonna book it. And obviously after that, how do you treat the customer, the guest, to be able to come back again or even stay longer? And I'll tell a story a little bit later. One of our like two the last time that we stayed, we ended our stay because it was so nice, and they reached out to us like, we have a bargain. If you want to add another couple of nights, we can give you a discount. I was like, I would like, makes a lot of sense. It was empty for them after we left, so we extended, and they have to resell us again. We were sold already because of the quality that they offered initially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the repeat guest thing is really critical. Obviously, you want to knock it out of the park on their initial stay, but once you have their trust and their data, also, you got to remarket to them. So you raise a point with the remarketing part. Airbnb is getting really, really tricky. So they don't like direct bookings, obviously, and so all of their staff training, their policies, their new systems, they're all geared towards keeping hosts from doing direct bookings. One example of that is they have a fake number now for guests who are staying. So it's no longer their actual phone number. It's just some, random number that is active during their stay. So you can still get on the phone and talk to them and things like that. But then once they leave, that number is not associated with them. So you have to work your way around that. There are sneaky ways about that. Like you can have like a digital guidebook where they have to register, like submit their phone number, email address to have access to that valuable information. And then once you have that, that data is gold. So you can remarket to them, give them a discount for booking directly next time with you and things like that. So Airbnb and all the other OTAs, they are continuing to evolve. And so you just have to stay on top of their policies. I think that's another really valuable point. Just pay attention to the policies so you know exactly how to pivot around those things that they do.
Makes sense. That's exactly it. In this last one, we stay here in like in mountains, like a couple of hours from Charlotte. Was exactly it. She said, "Okay, you have more information, even access to the Wi-Fi password and all the information." And we just got into it. And that she said exactly what you told me. When you told me that now she reached out because she got my number. When you were saying, like, I said, "How did she get my number?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I signed up to get all the information and all the instructions because they have like a multiple equipment within the Airbnb, so they have videos, instruction, and everything." I was like, "That was amazing. Everything was organized." But like you said, did you capture the information? Pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I've seen like two different strategies kind of working right now. One strategy is obviously you got to beat people on price and value, and so you might be on the lower end or mid tier. Hopefully nice listing. Maybe you got a good deal on it, but you're able to just beat people on that price, right? And that's one way to do it. Or it's really going overboard and saying, how do I just make it unique? How do I add the amenities? And I have both of those. I have some that are more budget friendly, $200 a night type properties. And we have some that are like $700 a night, properties that we give a boat with them. There's a sauna, there's the hot tubs, the high end experience that you're clearly most people are not booking those, but when you get the right customer that sees that, they're willing to pay that price for that unique experience. Are you seeing anything in the middle there working, or are those the two kind of like really, really high amenities, high price, and then the lower tier dominating your market, or are you seeing something different, Davis?
I mean, I think middle or the elevated level is where you want to go, because when you start competing on price, you're going to attract everybody.
Yeah.
And that's not what you want. And then you get problems with like people not taking care of the home or partying and things like that. So you actually want to force higher prices to protect your asset. So that's one point. And going back to Carlos, your point too, like, another technique is, it's a captive portal is what it's called. Anytime somebody goes into a hotel, you expect to put in your email address and your room number or whatever to get access to Wi-Fi. Everybody needs access to Wi-Fi. So that's another way to get that data and remarket to them in the future. When you use a captive portal, this is a hot tip. So with a captive portal, you have to pay per listing. So that can add up, but there are ways around that with the digital guidebooks where you don't have to pay for it depending on the provider, but you still get that data. So and we can talk about specific technologies whenever the time makes sense as well.
Yeah, I love it. Those of you guys that joined us, if you have questions for Davis or Carlos or myself, just put it in the chat or raise your hand. We'll be happy to read out your question and address it along the way. But Davis, who are your clients that you work with? Like, who's your typical investor? Why did they decide to invest in short-term rentals? I'm always curious when someone's thinking about the path that they're going to invest in. Some people just own a bunch of different types of investments, but if someone bought a short-term rental, I'm curious to think about who that person is. So your clients specifically, who are you seeing are being attracted to this space?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, the Luminest Homes is the name of the company. We haven't been in business for that long. It's been like a year and a half. So just like any business, there's quite an evolution as time has gone by. When I first started, I was taking anybody, right? Like you just need clients. But as I've kind of like grown, the company's grown, and we have a team and all this. Most of our clients are now they have maybe a couple of properties. Or maybe they have some long-term rentals, but they're interested in dabbling in the short-term rental space. And so, as I'm looking ahead, I think, I envision people with, bigger portfolios who are very savvy investors, but they don't have the time to operate because it is very much an operation and it's the hospitality business. And their time is better served elsewhere. And so these are the kind of clients that I am, growing to build relationships with.
Yeah, when we speak to people looking at investing and those that gravitate towards a short-term rental, they're usually one of a couple categories that I find. But the number one, if you're a full-time investor, you actually probably are putting less attention on short-term rental because you have so many options available to you, and you have the tax benefits of a real estate professional without having to go the short-term rental route. The short-term rental is such a cheat code for someone that is not a real estate professional, according to the IRS, because you can do the cost segregation study. You can get the bonus depreciation. I have a training called Buy One, Get One Free Real Estate. It's about 2 hours. So at some point we might do a webinar specifically for that. And the whole premise is every time I buy real estate with this very specific goal in mind, I buy a property that has ability to do a cost segregation on it at a high rate. And that basically gives me such a big tax write-off that it doesn't quite pay for itself, the down payment, but it allows me to save enough taxes to put a down payment on a slightly smaller property. So for example, if I bought $1 million property, put 200 something thousand dollars down, and did a cost seg on that, and it was fully optimized for a cost seg, then I might be saving, I don't know, $100,000 in taxes, depending on various scenarios, how big the lot is, the type of property. And then that $100,000 that would have gone to taxes, the IRS says, no, you keep that because you are a real estate professional and you meet all these requirements. And now I can go buy a second property, right? So it's buy one, get one free real estate. But the caveat is you have to be a real estate professional unless you're buying a short-term rental. And so you can be not a real estate professional by any means. You can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer, you can be just, someone working your 9-to-5 job saying, I want to invest in real estate and stop paying as much ridiculous taxes as I am. And if you invest in short-term rental, there's rules you need to follow in terms of how much time you got to put into it. But if you follow those rules, you can get such a huge tax write-off. And you do one of those per year, you're always chipping away at your tax burden. I've seen so many people wipe away their federal tax burden completely by doing that. So a lot of savvy investors that are not full-time real estate professionals look at short-term rentals as the golden goose, because it's not just about the return. It's not just about the appreciation. It is about the tax savings and the tax strategy. Clearly, we're not tax advisors, but that is something that if you look up, you're going to see is such a huge advantage. Do you get much of that on your end in terms of people specifically trying to strategize for that?
Honestly, no. To this point, no client has asked about that. I've gone through a couple of cost seg studies myself, or one and a half. I'm in the middle of one now. But I think that's something that should be really a part of our approach, advertising approach or marketing approach,
Yeah.
as a part of the pitch, for those
Stop
people who
paying
are kind of on the
taxes
fence.
legally.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
So my perception is every time you start talking about cost segregation, it's more like a savvy investor. It might not be savvy real estate investor, but so that's why sometimes you don't see it in like brand new like short-term investors. What I see is a lot of people getting excited because it's a sexy strategy. I'm gonna buy a property, they're gonna vacation in, and then I'm gonna have tenants pay for it. And also they see the numbers. They say, okay, rental, long-term rental is boring. It's gonna be like only like, let's see, 2,800, 2,600. But then you can do $7,000, $9,000 with the short-term rental. And especially if they're like me, they're consumer, they look at the numbers and man, this looks amazing. What they don't see, and they realize it later when they bought it, is that you have to do the with David said, the hospitality part. You have to answer the phone. You have to like sometimes we know people like that, like start doing it and had like run in the middle of the dinner because the guests had an issue with the door and they still safe manage and they have to go there, they have to pack and they have to like put all the supplies and that's why they get burned and they say, oh, this sucks. I mean, this is horrible, and that's why they get out of the business. How many times we hear people say, you know what, this is a nightmare because now their guests is, I mean, they cannot get into the door. I mean, the code is not working, and then obviously as a guest you're gonna give it a review, and then I want to hear David's opinion in terms of how can you maximize the reviews, because that's what it is. They're so worried about, oh my god, they're gonna give bad reviews, so I have to like stop dinner with my wife because I have to run because the guest is gonna give you a bad review if they cannot get into the property at the right time.
Yeah, I mean, on the real quick on the cost seg thing, like you have to be the operator to be able to take advantage of that. I forget the specific number of hours you need to dedicate, but you need to be the core manager of that property. Where it would, for us, where it would make sense is because we still do consultancy, so we do like advisory and like coach people and teach people how to do the operations part, even if we don't actively manage it. I just want to make that clear for everybody who's listening.
Let me just jump in real quick there.
Yeah.
You have to be the operator the year you put it into service. You have to get your hours the year you put into service, because if you do a cost seg and you do the bonus appreciation, you're front loading that bonus appreciation, and it's based on what you're doing that year. So literally, there's so many people that buy properties in October and November, get it ready, put it on the market in December, rent it out 3 or 4 times. Literally, that's it. They're doing all the work, and then they're hiring an operator the following year, and then the cost seg is based on their work the first year. And that's all they care about. Now, in the future years, they're not getting the same level of benefit. However, they front loaded the bonus appreciation, 100% bonus appreciation. They front loaded that of what they could front load. So if you're going to do bonus appreciation and cost seg, it's the first year. And often that's why the second half of the year, you see so many more short-term rental transactions, because people don't want to operate it for the entire year. They want to operate it for a couple months. And to be honest, some people switch their strategy. The next year, you might say, I want to go down to midterm rentals, maybe spend a little bit less time on this, or not necessarily less time, but maybe not focus on short-term and midterm. Midterm does not qualify you for the bonus depreciation exception, the short-term rental exception. However, if that first year was short-term rental, you qualify. The next year, switching to midterm, they don't care what you do the following year because you already got that exception in year one. So, I mean, talk to your tax advisor, but there's some really cool strategies, legal strategies to avoid taxes or to be creative on how you can pay less taxes.
Yeah, very important distinction. You were asking about reviews, Carlos, specifically?
Yes. Yeah. So, like, you hear so many people so worried lately, not just in Airbnb, but everywhere about the review. Oh my God, you have to take care of the customer. Obviously, that's supposed to be, I mean, a given. You have to take the customer, but now you have to go above and beyond the customer. And sometimes the customer take advantage of that, because I'll give the bad review. So how do you in terms, because like it's hospitality business. I mean, you have to like keep the customer happy and the communication. That's why they ended up hiring someone like you. They have a system and they have a team. So how do you maximize your efforts of to get the best possible review for your clients, because high reviews, higher booking. I mean, if you manage property, higher revenue.
Yeah. It's a lot of it is just like the simple stuff. If it's broken, fix it. If you don't have the inventory, replace it. Um, Personally speaking, there are some clients where, a saying that I always say is, you pinch pennies, you lose dollars, especially in the short-term rental business or the mid-term rental business. You can't be afraid to spend that money, because to your point, Carlos, reviews are everything. Even in the mid-term rental space, reviews, not so much as short-term rental, but they're hugely important. So if you got a broken toilet or whatever, just fix it. Personal thing for me is, one thing that I learned in the last year and a half was, if the client is slow to pull the trigger on fixing something and the listing is held under our profile, we're kind of handcuffed. And there's, like, our reviews suffer. So, now I'm having conversations, and, whenever I bring on a new client, I kind of get a vibe check of what I'm getting myself into. And if I feel like there's going to be some challenges, and I'm just being honest here, I will recommend that they hold on to that profile, and that listing is under their name rather than us, and we're just onboarded as a co-host. We can still execute perfectly fine, and there's a lot of nuance and technical distinctions there. But that's kind of just, sharing a little bit of, what we experience on the management side. But from a review perspective, yeah, it's everything. And there's a, review period gymnastics is what I call it. So the Airbnb gives you 14 days of a review period. And that's both on the guest and the host side. So after that 14-day period, you can't leave a review. So there's certain strategies that we take where we're kind of at the 11th hour, basically that 13th and a half day, where there's a lot of activity. Let's say like they broke something or something's missing. Then before we approach them and we risk a negative experience where they still have an opportunity to leave a negative review, we don't give them the opportunity to do it. So we approach them at the very last second, and don't give them any time to react. So that's just kind of one tactic or whatever to mitigate negative reviews. But yeah, there's this whole, I could talk about how to mitigate negative reviews and promote positive reviews all day, if you let me.
I'll jump in there as well. What we started doing is we used to, like, all right, we got to get the cleaning team in. I want to see the photos, take a picture of we still do that. But before I give them a review, before I even talk to the guests after they check out, I want to like make sure they didn't damage my property. We shifted to right away, within like an hour, we send them a message. Oh my goodness, thank you for being amazing guests. Just heard back from a cleaner. So, which, we don't have the full report yet, but, thank you. And you've been amazing to work with. We just left you a 5-star review. We're a small family, business, and every review counts. So I hope that we've earned your high review as well. So we do that right away on day one. 90% of our guests, after getting that, leave us a review that day. Because if they broke something and they didn't tell us, they're worried and like, oh, they're not complaining about whatever I broke. And they leave that review. Doesn't mean you can't go back and find something later. Like, hey, 3 hours into the clean, it looks like we found this broken vase, or looks like this happened, and we have a policy about that, right? And we can start a claim, or, figure out how to recover that as well. So I try to, no matter what the condition, get that review on day one within 3 to 4 hours. And then any claim discussions or any discussions about any sort of damage happens on day 2 or day 3, hopefully after the review happens. What if there is a complaint, or there is damage, or there's something, right? Something broke. I had an HVAC go out in the middle of the summer in Florida while someone was staying at my property. That sucked for them. Like it sucked, right? So how do we deal with that? How do you, when you have a terrible experience, you're doing everything you can to do it, to mitigate that. But are there any advice or tips on how to like get through that and then still trying to manage a good review, or at least incentivize no negative reviews?
Yeah, this is more gymnastics. So, first thing is you have to, getting on the phone goes such a long way. that goes in general communications. When you get on the phone, the tonality, like everything, like they get a feel for you as a person. And even though they may have a negative review, just by getting on the phone and kind of talking through and letting them feel like you're trying to do everything you can to make sure that, you kind of minimize their negative experience. And so I would say getting on the phone is critical. I would say, if it's like a cleaning issue, be very quick to pull the trigger on giving them a full or a partial refund on their cleaning fee. That's an easy one. And then hopefully before you even start working with a cleaner, which is a whole different topic, you want to set expectations and say, listen, if we have a negative review and it's specifically around cleaning, we're going to not pay the full cleaning fee. That's just the way it's going to be. We'll give you the evidence, photos, everything you need. Just making that clear so it's a smooth, frictionless transaction to not pay the full cleaning fee. So that's one thing. And then on top of that, you can give them a discount as a returning guest. And then, instead of just, the kind of like later stages would be giving them a credit or a refund for the current stay, but, use that as a lever to pull as well. So, hey, sucks that you had a terrible experience. We're going to try to make it right this time, but we'll give you back some of the cleaning fee. And guess what? You come back to us, we'll give you a 25% discount. And then they feel good about it. And that also helps mitigate the negative review because they want to continue to have a good relationship with somebody who's still giving them a discount on a future stay. So you're creating leverage in a sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. What we've started doing, if I'm the same way, if I could give them a credit of some sort on a future stay, but sometimes you got to credit back for their current stay. One of the days was just terrible, like they were, or whatever and it makes sense to credit part of that or all of that back, possibly, right? However, you can give them the credit back, $500 back, and they can still give you a bad review. So what we started doing was, hey, we will give you a credit for X dollars. I just want to let you know we feel terrible for the inconvenience of having to put up with a contractor there fixing this. Obviously, is out of our control, but hopefully the rest of your stay was great. We will give you a credit after you check out. And then when they check out, we say, here's how we do our credits. We tell them there is a 14-day review policy with Airbnb, and we will give you your credit at the end of that 14-day review as long as there's no negative reviews. We understand you might not feel comfortable leaving a great review, but if you don't leave a negative review, then completely okay. So don't leave a review at the end of 14 days. We'll give you that. If you want to speed run this or you want to fast track it, then leave us a 5-star review. If you're comfortable doing that, then you can get that credit tomorrow. And we've had people go through literally a day without an HVAC. They were happy in how we handled it, but they could have easily been a bad review because of that one day. Give us that 5-star review, speak to the event and how fast we fixed it, and we were able to credit them sooner rather than later in those scenarios. Communication is key, right? As you mentioned. However, you can't be on the phone all the time. What are some of the technologies that you're using? You covered this in the Loudon class a little bit, but I think we had to fast track that because of our other presenters there. What are some of your favorite technologies to automate technology, automate communication, automate things that make your Airbnb business run smoothly?
You're right. Communication is everything. The tool that I love is HostBuddy AI. So it is a AI messaging tool that you sync with your channel manager, and it really can work a lot of magic. And they're constantly improving the tool. So a couple of examples that I shared this in Loudon the other day was troubleshooting. So the other day we had a toilet that was messed up. A guest sent over a picture, and the flusher was just like at an odd angle, and I didn't even notice that at first, but the AI read the image and it picked up on that, and it troubleshot that with her and said, hey, it looks like the lever is like slanted down, can you try to like move it around a little bit? And she did it, and it resolved the issue. So, it won't always happen that perfectly, but there's a certain percentage of like maintenance issues even that it will help resolve. And we were not involved with that at all. We saved a couple of $100 from a plumber going out there, probably touching the flusher and then charging us $200 for it. Another example is like a lockout. So if somebody's locked out, this happened like a couple of weeks ago. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning. They're like, hey, I can't get in. It'll detect it and it'll say, hey, troubleshoot the smart lock. If that doesn't work, here's the code of the lockbox. If that doesn't work, here's our phone number. Give us a call. We have staff on hand to help you troubleshoot it. So it's such a powerful tool. Even if you have one property, I cannot recommend that more. Like, it's such a great tool.
Love it. What's your main CRM, or not CRM, but your channel manager again that you're using?
We use Hospitable.
Hospitable. Yeah, I use that on a lot of our properties as well. Within Hospitable, you're able to automate a lot of the messages. Thank you for booking with us. You're 3 days out. Here's some information. You're 1 day out. Here's some information. You're 3 hours out. Here's your check-in information. Are you utilizing those automations, or are you tapping into another system to do some automated messages for you?
Just HostBuddy AI. Okay. So I know Hospitable does have stuff out of the box, and I think it's getting better as well. But for us, don't fix it if it's not broke. And HostBuddy AI has been perfect for us.
So all the communication is through HostBuddy, not just the troubleshooting stuff.
No, yeah, everything.
Oh, everything. That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah. Check-in instructions. It will remember based on the conversation. So you don't have to feed the knowledge base. It will learn organically, I guess, like through over time as you're having conversations with those guests.
Love it. That's pretty cool.
We do have a question for Davis. I'm going to put it here so you can answer it. From Lucas. And Lucas, he usually says, he's a regular here. He said, Davis, I was wondering if you try, I guess, at least AI. I talked to a few property managers and they mentioned using it for maintenance.
First of all, shout out to Lucas. Lucas is the man. I see him at like every single meetup. He's awesome. Elise AI, I've heard of it. I've never used it myself.
Yeah, I haven't used it either. Same thing. Heard about it. There's so many cool tools that have come up in the last year, maybe even 6 months or so, that we're seeing evolving around this, specifically with short-term rentals. How are you bridging the gap with technology, short-term rentals and mid-term rentals? Because I've been teaching about short-term rentals for probably 8 or 9 years now. This last year, I updated my presentation to include mid-term rentals, because, to be honest, almost every single one of my short-term rentals, I create a mid-term rental listing as well. No one from Airbnb is on there, so I'm pretty sure they don't want you to create a duplicate listing, but I literally create 2 listings for every single property that I have. One's a short-term rental listing. One is a mid-term rental listing that's 30 days or more. And then I use my channel manager to marry those two calendars, so that, if my short-term, someone books a week in May, then the whole month of May is blocked off, for my midterm rental. Or if my midterm rental gets booked, then I'm able to block it off on the short-term rental side. But it's really, really helpful, because in some of my markets, it's very seasonal. And so for example, Florida, we have a lot of snowbirds coming out here during the winter. In Florida, in peak summer, it's not as busy, right? So we can get a midterm rental in the summertime for the entire month, rather than with just one weekend that entire month, in a normal scenario. And we've seen a lot of success with pushing both midterm and short term. And we're using mainly the same tools, but we're not going only midterm furnished rentals. So I don't know, do you have any properties that are just midterm short furnished rentals? And if so, what technology or systems are you using to help automate that?
So they don't Airbnb has not flagged you for having 2 listings on one address?
Yep.
Wow.
I changed the photos, the cover photo. I changed the description, and I clearly put 30-day stay. And so, but I have a handful of listings where I have duplicate listings. Literally, Airbnb gives you the option to duplicate this listing. So they created that option for a reason. I don't know why. But yes, there's from my understanding, there's a potential to get flagged. But they're giving you the option to literally just copy and paste that listing and to create another one. So I do it.
So this
Okay.
is for education purposes. We're not
Yes,
telling anybody to
hypothetically,
do
that'll
that.
I've personally never done that. We might have to explore that. But as far as like for midterm specifically, we kind of use some of the short-term rental tools for midterm because you can operate midterm rental on those same platforms. Just adjust the minimum stay, like I was saying earlier. Like we also use Hospitable as one of those examples to manage our midterm rentals too. It's not perfect, because you have to like a lot of times you draft leases and it's like a lot of the stuff outside of that channel manager. But a lot of the tools it's pretty consistent. I'm trying to think of like a unique one for midterm. We have like
the same issue. I'm not seeing a huge amount of technology for midterm yet. Obviously, you have Furnish Finder, which is like a platform for midterm. It's not quite the same functionality as Airbnb yet. I'm hoping that they get there, but I think they're a little bit behind in terms of providing technology for operators.
Yeah, totally.
We have Nico. What's up, Nico? Davis is a goat. Correct. Yes. So what about one of my favorite strategies is the room-to-room co-living. Right. So co-living, you do it on the furnished side, which would be midterm, but room to room. What are you using? How are you finding those tenants? What's your best way of finding these people that want to stay there for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months in one room in a property? And how are you managing expectations because people are living together in a shared space?
First of all, shout out to you, Omni. My very first rent by the room was a property that was our primary home. Omni just told us to it's a 4-bedroom. He told us to throw up a wall, spent like $1,000 on it, added a door, and now we have 5 bedrooms. That property, the range of rents is from $1,350 all the way up to $1,850 per room. That's before utilities. We charge a flat fee of $75 per room. I'm thinking about jacking that up too.
Nice.
So that property is crushing it. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I remember that. That was several years ago. I remember the conversations there leading into what do we do with this? And literally that was probably the only option to make it cash flow anywhere near where you're coming from there.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, 5 bedrooms, 4.5 bath. It works out quite nicely. I love rent by the room for a lot of reasons. But one thing that I love about it is the visibility that you get into the home, where otherwise you don't get the visibility. What I mean by that is we have a WhatsApp group for every single property that we manage. And as a requirement, we have everybody sign up for that WhatsApp group. And it does a few things. We can shotgun blast out information about the property or just relevant information. And also it's a channel for them to report issues. So they'll say like maintenance issues or whatever, or the next door roommate or housemate is annoying me, all this kind of stuff. So sometimes it's, not the most pleasant conversation, but what it does is it gives us visibility into the culture of the community of the home. We've had people say hey, I just baked some cookies. I left them out on the kitchen table, have at them if you like, stuff like that. So, and that's the kind of stuff that you love to see. And that it's a pleasant community. You also get problems that are reported. So whether it's good or bad, you have that pulse on what's going on in the home without having to put cameras up inside the home, which of course you can't do. So I think that part's nice. And even without the WhatsApp group, they police each other. So if somebody has an issue with their housemate and they are like recently we had somebody just coughing up their lungs every single night, waking up this guy, and he's pissed off, and we're hearing about it, and so it's that's one of the more annoying things, but that's just an example of we get a pulse of what's going on. If somebody's doing damage in a bedroom or inviting a bunch of people, we're going to know about it. So that's that visibility that I'm talking about that you don't get with any other strategy.
So I like it because a lot of people. Go ahead, Carlos.
Yes. What is your before you? What is your idea, the structure for your house? And also, just to follow up my question, how did you fill those properties. Like I see a lot of people doing it here in Charlotte, and we try with the property, and we realize so hard. Obviously right now, I don't know in your area is, but there is a Pat Split, I think that's the name, which they're the marketing company, and they charge a fee, obviously, but they have the manpower to bring the tenants. So how do you do it? Do you use a third party to provide the potential tenants, so you don't have to go become a marketing company to get them out? Can they come in, or in the properties where you market are there is this huge need, so you don't have to like be worried about filling those rooms? And especially how big of how many rooms per house do you usually have?
So on the sourcing of tenants, a lot of the stuff is consistent with midterm rental channels. So we get a ton of people from Furnished Finder. You can filter by rent by the room. And so we got people from there. We get people from Facebook Marketplace. You have to screen a little bit better on Facebook, but there's that. There's roomies.com. There's one that I don't use, but Roomster, I think, is another one. We've never used Pad Split. I'm not opposed to it, and it's just a coincidence that we have it. Yeah, but when I first heard about it, I kept hearing about the fees are just ridiculous, and so I kind of shied away from it. But then, everything else was working, so I haven't really had a need to experiment with that. But I would say most of them come from Furnished Finder.
And in terms of how many rooms per house do you have, and how many bathrooms? You mentioned the one like 5-4, which would be ideal. But usually your average house for rent by the room, what is the structure?
As many as possible.
No, well, that's the case. But I see houses with 11
Davis,
rooms.
your home that you guys converted that extra room, where did you put that room?
It was in the loft.
It was in the loft. Yeah, it's just converted a loft there. So
Yeah.
like if there's a dining room, guess what? That's a bedroom. If there's an office, guess what? That's a bedroom. If there is a basement, guess what? That's a bedroom. In some areas, you can convert garages to bedrooms as well. So
yeah, I see the point, but I visit property people doing it, and they have like 10, 11 rooms in a house. And I was like, man, first of all, you have to manage. I mean, it's 11 tenants. And it looks extremely weird. I mean, it's like a maze. So yeah. At the same time, you have to and we have different operators. We recently have our session here local in the Cash for Pesos Club, and we invite a couple operators, and we have one of the ladies that more like luxury style, like charge like a higher price with like nice like accent walls and everything. So it's different style. So yeah, I would love to bump it up to 10, 11, but then I have to fill them up. And here, if you don't get like Pad Split or some kind of source, then you're gonna have like 10, 11 rooms. Then only you have like 60% occupied.
That same townhome that I mentioned, if it was up to me, and like I was thinking about throwing up walls in the living room, so adding like 2 more bedrooms in there. So that would have been 7. Oh my God, I was going crazy.
I was saying do it, and I think you got a little pushback on that. Yes.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
My wife.
So, yeah, exactly. There's a lot that I've convinced my wife of through the years, but that's one of those things that I didn't win that battle for. But I think the bigger thing is the ratio between the bedroom and the bathroom. So it doesn't matter if it's 2 bed, 2 bath, 5 bed, 5 bath, like as long as you have a 1-to-1 or as close as that as possible, that's the most important thing. And then the next thing to think about is your parking. So assuming you're not by a metro and like public transportation, you want to have as much parking spots to facilitate those, whatever number of bedrooms that you have.
Yeah, I find 2-to-1 bedroom bathroom ratio is my comfort level. I've never had an issue where saying, hey, we have 2 people sharing this bathroom. Obviously, you get a premium price if you have a private bathroom 1-to-1 scenario, but try to stay as close to that 2-to-1 as possible. We have done 3-to-1 in some scenarios, some markets. To answer your initial question, how do we find the tenants? All the same places that Davis just did. If it's a brand new market for me, before I even like buy the property, I put an ad out on Facebook or post in several communities and say, hey guys, we are in the process of acquiring and renovating a property, and we're going to be renting by the room, and it's going to be priced from here to here. It's in this neighborhood. And if you want to get on the waiting list, let me know. Now, if it's crickets, all right, no demand. If it's we got 10, 20, 30 people saying, please call me, please message me, all right, we're feeling much better about that demand. So often we're working on one right now. We're converting in Florida is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. We're actually turning it into an 8-bedroom, 4-bath. And we did that, in terms of like putting it out there. We have like 8 people that have like seriously, put in their potential, not full application yet, but put in their interest in that. So you can absolutely test the market even before you buy the property to see if it's something that you can find the demand for.
That's awesome. Yeah, super smart.
Pretty cool.
Even before you buy it, right?
Yeah, love it. All right, there's a lot of stuff that we covered, but we're going to start to wrap up here. Yeah, go ahead, Carlos. Walk us through these last couple of slides here.
Yes, pretty cool. Pretty fast. So I have here as the manager. So which one would be a better scenario? Have 70% occupancy at a 200 night, same house, or 50% occupancy at 300 nights? Because a lot of people want to have the 80, 90% occupancy, so they lower the price. So in your case, looking at these numbers, this is hypothetical, obviously, but which one will be a better performing property? 70% sounds good, nice at 200 a night, or 50% at 200?
Oh, you're asking me? Oh,
yeah.
I'll jump in because I know Davis' answer, because he mentioned this in his presentation. Yeah. You don't want to chase full occupancy by lowering your rates, because you are going to start to attract a lower tier resident or guest who will not take care of your property. And so obviously you're finding the right balance of the total amount of revenue you're bringing across in the month or in the year. But chasing that 90, 100% occupancy often means you got to really lower your rates, and that changes the demographics sometimes of who you're renting to and might increase your repair costs.
Yeah. And what I found is investors who have trained their brain as long-term traditional operators, they don't really have to think about the rent rate so much unless it's like every year or whatever. So when you're thinking about it from that lens, all you're thinking about is occupancy. And so I have clients now, they want beds or heads in beds like 100%, period. I don't care. It's like, I have a 2-day gap here. Where's my guest? And I'm like, you can't look at the occupancy. Like you got to look at revenue. Like revenue is always more important, and occupancy is just one of those functions that ladder up to revenue. So totally, I mean, occupancy is one of those things. In fact, I don't want 90% occupancy in any of my short-term rentals. To Omni's point, yeah.
That makes sense.
Actually, Lucas had a question real quick. I love this question. This goes back to the co-living. If we have a lot of beds but limited parking, can you just pave the front yard and create more space? I love this because I've done this. However, this is why where you invest limits your options. If you are in an HOA, you clearly can't do that. If you're in an area with no HOA, you have an acre lot and you have room. Often, if there's a long driveway, I'm looking at, can I turn off that driveway and put a gravel or concrete, which I've done many times, turn in parking lot where it turns into 5 or 6 spaces there. But that is in non-HOA areas. And then you got to look out for, permitting, zoning restrictions. But if it's a long enough driveway and a large enough lot, it is possibly an option.
Yeah, check with the municipality first. At least when people do it in the area.
Yeah,
so
love it.
When you buy real estate, one of the key important facts is the financing. And then so many people have been projecting the Fed to lower the rates for so many months and years. And the Fed just met today, and the vote was 6-3, and the rate stayed the same. Most likely, we might have they're going to have another meeting in September, and the trend is that if the inflation doesn't go down, they might raise rates. How do you guys see it? I know Omni is huge in terms of like underwrite the deal. Don't get so head out like just project or try to like analyze the Fed to let it do whatever they do, and then eventually if the rates come down and if you buy at a higher rate, you get a better deal. How do you see it working, and especially in short-term rental in terms of like the high rates? And I know people, they've been waiting for years for the rates to come down, and I know other people like you and I, they've been buying so many properties that they're obviously paying attention about the news, but they just didn't get stopped or paralyzed or frozen because the rates are not coming down.
Yeah, would I love low rates again? Yeah, probably. There's a whole ton of properties I'm ready to refinance. But the reality is when you hear about news, like let's say the rates do raise, and you get this like exhale from the whole investor community, like what are they doing, right? All right, I'll exhale as well, but I'm going to look at that as all right, more opportunity because everyone else is going to struggle, and if I can be creative, I might have better opportunities. And so, with the higher rates, it usually is in is there seller financing? Is there some sort of creative financing that you can do? There are sellers who are willing to do that in a high interest rate environment where they wouldn't even consider that in a normal interest rate environment. So there's a lot of sellers that are saying, hey, I need to be creative or be willing to be creative because I can't afford an 8% interest rate. They understand it won't cash flow. They understand I'm an investor, but they're willing to give me a 5% rate for the next 3 years, 5 years, whatever it may be, until the rates drop and I can refinance. That opens up the door. The demand across the market starts to slow as rates go up. So now they're going from what used to be a seller's market into a neutral market, into a buyer's market in some area. And that gives you more creative negotiating power. Most of what we do is off market. Sometimes we do on market as well, but just having these conversations, not every seller is in a position where they can do seller financing or some sort of creative financing, but the ones that can will give you that edge to say, I can make your property work way better than that exact same property next door at the exact same price. And I'm going to buy your property because you're willing to give me terms on it at a low interest rate so it can cash flow until I refinance.
And something that people don't realize is that but the Fed impact the rates are usually for the short-term loans. It's not the mortgage. The mortgage are the 10-year treasury, so the 10-year bond. So what happened is that so many people are get like hang up in that, like you said, like super extremely worried. But that's why the session, and that's the one coming up for next week here in Charlotte, the creative finance. And it's a lot of even savvy investors that are not really open to do that. Or they really don't know how it works until they hear someone like Omni explain it really well, so they can utilize it as one of the tools. And like you say, it has to be like the seller be able to do that. Now, not every seller has like a pay house and be able to do whatever they want. But there is a lot of them that might be willing to if it's presented properly.
Yeah, love it. So I promised in the beginning we're going to keep this under an hour because we almost never hold that promise. So, Davis, you've been awesome. We want to make sure that people know how to get a hold of you. I've got a couple announcements. We're going to do a couple quick prizes for those of you still on with us. We're going to do some prize drawings as well and some pretty cool announcements. But Davis, if someone wants to reach out to you, follow up, have a discussion, have a Zoom, obviously if they're in the Fairfax area, they can see you in person. But outside of that, what's a good way for them to reach you?
Yeah, just hit me up on my phone. Oh, there it is. So that's my phone number, my email address. That QR code will take you to my Blink, so my digital business card. So just reach out to me anytime. I love talking about furnished rentals. I don't care the strategy within that space. So just hit me up if you want to just shoot the shit or just, pick my brain, and I can pick yours too.
Love it. Yeah. So he's a wealth of knowledge. Appreciate you being able to do that. So quick couple of announcements here. I mentioned this in the beginning. BPCon 2026, $100 off right now directly through their site. It's early bird pricing by the end of July. So you have a couple days left. And if you use code CFBC, you're going to get an additional $50 off. So that's $150. We're going to give another $200 rebate where I'm literally going to pay you $200 to go if you win this prize in our drawing as well. So we're going to do that here shortly. Let's do some quick prize drawings for June. Once again, get your leaderboard numbers in. Every single month you get a reminder email. You have several more days left for July so that you might be in the running for prizes at our next event here. So let me pull up.
In the meantime, remind you that we do this once a month, and we have really great invites. Like we have Davis, amazing. Like I wish we have like a couple hours because we have so many content, so many questions I wanted to ask. But I guess we might be able to bring you back if you're willing to come back another time. So yeah, just sign up for our events. We do it. The webinar is the last Wednesday of every month. So I think we have ready the draw.
Love it. All right. So we have, let's draw our first winner. This is for $200. Literally, you're going to get $100 off early bird, $50 off from CFBC, plus I'm literally going to give you $200 if you join us at the Bigger Pockets conference. So you're probably going for free at this point. I don't know. Let's see who is joining us. John, what up, John? Congratulations, John. Reach out to us. We will, if you're going to go, I think you said you are. We'll make sure that we get you those credits as well. We have some really cool swag, some new CFBC hats and some polos. This is going to be for a CFBC polo. If you win, my assistant will reach out to you to get your size. CFBC branded gear, branded polo. Congratulations, DK. I think that's your second win in 2 months. It sounds rigged. And last one, we have a really cool hat, CFBC hat, that you can show up to your next event there. And that is Jules. What's up, Jules? Congratulations. She's out of our Loudon office. So love it. So thank you all for participating. Now there's something weird happening with my screen. Okay, so last thing real quick. I don't know if we're going to officially announce this publicly yet, but for our friends here, super excited. We have in September, most of you know Bigger Pockets. Brandon Turner is a really good friend of mine. He was a previous host of Brandon Bigger Pockets. We've been talking about collaborating with him within Casual Breakfast Club for actually a couple of years now. And we're going to be doing our kickoff co-branded event. Brandon Turner and myself, a Casual Breakfast Club, is going to be in Vegas, and it's probably going to be September 17th in and around that date. I wish I had it locked in, but we're working on that. So super excited about that. So if you happen to be in Vegas area or know someone in Vegas area, or if you want to fly out to Vegas and join us within the next week, we will let you know when that's happening. Super excited about that event. Get to meet Brandon Turner in person, hear his story, and then obviously we're going to go through a Casual Breakfast Club networking and mastermind session out there. So super excited for that. Thank you guys all for coming out. Thank you, Carlos, for being an amazing host as always. Thank you, Davis, for being awesome and sharing your wisdom and leading one of our awesome chapters. That's all. Appreciate you guys. Sorry, no time for questions today. If you have any questions, email it in to Carlos. He'll handle those questions. He'll send it to me and Davis. Just kidding. You know how to get a hold of us. But hope you guys have a great day.
God bless you guys. Thank you, Davis.
This was fun. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys.